Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Azure podcast. We're recording. This is episode number 427, and we're going to be talking about SONiC. We'll get into what that is shortly, but we're recording this on June 16th, and we have our special guests Sarah Novotny and Ching Liu, and they're going to talk about what the heck this SONiC thing is and why we care. Pretty thin crowd from a host perspective. I think everybody's off enjoying their vacations. I myself am getting ready to go, but a couple of things in news I did want to hit, and then Sarah, Ching, if you guys have something you want to throw in, feel free to. As the audience knows, a lot of my heart is still in the networking world, so I did want to call out some neat things news-wise there. Network Watcher for VM scale sets is now in public preview. The private link for Azure Application Gateway, right, which allows you to put private IPs behind App Gateway, and then sort of in the more Arc world, we've got System Center for Arc, Arc enabled for System Center, which basically says if you push a machine to make it Arc enabled, System Center can manage it, and then even sort of broader Windows Admin Center, which is something that gives you a single pane of glass into your Azure and your on-premises stuff now can expand to include anything that's got Arc on it. So again, sort of expanding that single pane of glass. And then the last one, and this is sort of near and dear to my heart because I do a bunch of change management work during my day job. We have increased the capabilities of our change management capabilities in Azure, and you can now see all resource changes across the ARM layer. This is changes that you as a customer or your environment automatically pushes. It does not cover things Azure does under the covers. That's probably a future show. We can talk about work that's going on there, but it does, further enhancing that capability so you can see all those changes. And so with that, let's get over to talk about SONiC. So Sarah, Ching, do me a favor, introduce yourselves. Tell us what the heck you do for Microsoft.
Sarah, how about go ahead?
Oh goodness, you first. SONiC's your baby.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is Xin. I come from Azure networking team that I'm leading the team to build network as a platform that is to involve our hardware, software, and management platform for our first party and the third party for them to have a highly reliable, performant, and a secured network infrastructure to run their business on. So a large part of it is building SONiC, leading the external ecosystem, and leading the internal launching for our business.
Okay, awesome, Sarah.
And Chin has done an amazing job on all of that. I got called in just as a consultant to help work on moving SONiC out to a new SONiC Foundation under the auspices of the Linux Foundation. And we'll talk lots more about that. But my role at Microsoft is to lead open source strategy. And so my team pays attention to lots going on in the open source world. So when you were going through the news, I was like, oh, I didn't know Microsoft did that. Oh, I didn't know Microsoft did that this week, because I often look at the open source side of this. Yeah. And so our team works very hard to bring what's happening in the industry into Microsoft and bring Microsoft out into what's happening in the open source side of the industry as well.
Yeah, we'll get into some of that when we, after we talk a little bit about SONiC. This has sort of been a recurring theme. The podcast has been around for, I'd have to think back a number of years.
400 plus.
Yeah,
episodes.
Exactly. So it's like eight or 9 years now, and we actually joke regularly because when we started this many years ago, we were still called Windows Azure, right? And so now to find, to hang out and talk to people like yourself who are focused on open source, right? It's such a shift for us from over the years, but it's a thing. I mean, it's a major investment for us these days, all across the board.
It is. Yeah, so, and from the top level, Satya saying things like all in on open source. And now we put our money and our time where our mouth is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so Ching, let's start with SONiC. So what is SONiC? And you talked about, we use this to sort of build network as a service for our internal customers and external customers. Why do I care about SONiC? Like, why did we have to invent SONiC?
Yeah, definitely a good question. SONiC actually stands for Software for the Open Networking in the Cloud. To be short, it's just a network OS running on top of the switches inside our infrastructures. That why we need it is built on top of Linux. It has like two key innovations. This innovation actually leads to why we need to invent it. Right. Actually, this is a demand that have been seen in by many cloud providers, enterprise, that they have the same same ideas and same demand that we need to go this way. So the two key innovations, one is the abstraction from the software to the hardware, so that it enable a network OS being able to run different hardware. It's like Windows. Windows can run different laptop server hardwares, right? Second is the containerized their design, that we are the first one to introduce, that a network OS that package all the components into a Docker container. So the benefit there is to enable them to evolve independently, and also enable us to cherry pick the best tooling, the best protocols, software, as well as to extend to different scenarios very easily. So this is about SONiC, right? But why Microsoft would like to have it invented? Like there are many OS already, vendor OEM OS already there, but why we need to have our own? So basically a few thoughts. The first one is to run in the network with a large scale is very challenging. We have a lot of hardware, and
when we say large, right, we mean really large at that point. This is not just sort of large. This is millions of devices, right, at the end of the day.
Exactly. And we have generations. We also have diversities in the different skills, right? So to name it, that we manage like more than 50 different hardware skills and the hundreds of software versions. To manage that is actually very heavy and very complex. What we really want to do is to have, we evolve our hardware, and we enable that multi-sourcing, multi-choice, block the unlock the vendor locking, so not to tie in one specific skills of hardware suppliers. That we would like to invent something that's able to run on different hardware platforms, so that when we evolve the network, right, our whole management system on top of it will stay intact. Otherwise, we never introduce something new. You have to develop like new CLIs, new management knobs to manage it. So that is a very heavy, overloaded work for us. Yeah, right. That's number one. Yeah.
So does this mean you talked about all different hardware? I could be wrong here, but I don't think today Microsoft ships its own network hardware. So this is basically we're buying hardware from different vendors, and then is this an add-on onto their OS? Is this a replacement of their OS? Like how does that end up working?
A good question. You are right that we don't build our network devices, we build our servers. It is a OS replacing that the operating system on top of it. But of course, underneath there's SDKs, there's firmwares that come from the hardware suppliers.
Okay, so sort of, I think your Windows model is probably where there's a hardware abstraction layer that's sort of in there as the SDK. You got the OS sitting on top, and then underneath it, you've got the physical hardware.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. We're also working across the industry with many of those hardware vendors to help them build an even better operating system by their contributions in SONiC.
Oh, so it goes both ways. Okay.
It goes both ways. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And that's the collaboration that Shin, as product manager, has been building and developing over the last many years, which has then culminated in us taking this out, working with the Open Compute project for a few years, working on that hardware layer and the software layer adjacent to it, and making sure that when we were ready to put the software into a foundation, we put it in a foundation that has a large history with networking and understands and engages with the industry broadly, and that's the Linux Foundation.
Yeah,
Okay.
very well
Okay.
said. Yeah.
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 So two questions sort of come out of that. One, it sounds like this is not just a Microsoft cloud thing, right? This is sort of for the cloud industry as a whole, right? We all have similar, our environments are a little bit different, but at the end of the day, we have very similar problems around scale. And then the second piece is, that sort of makes sense how it benefits the industry. But let's say I'm a customer of Azure. Why do I care? Like, yeah, it's something Microsoft built. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. But like, does this bring benefits to me as a customer that this is going to ultimately help with?
Yes. Actually, you see benefit from 3 fronts. The first one is the quality and performance, because we usually have seen this, that the same hardware software bug and issues we have seen in one type of hardware or one type of OS or software from the one suppliers also happens on the others, because it's so complex.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is using one battle tested software to run across the fleet, that we harden it, we test it, we run in one region like very thoroughly, and then roll it out to different hardware, so that it helps us to have like improve the quality and reliability for the customer. Yeah. Second is in terms of TTM, that when we have the hands-on the software.
Time to mitigate, right, is what you mean in that context, right?
Okay. Actually, time to market and time to mitigate.
Oh, time to market. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Good thing we defined that, because I was thinking totally different. Okay.
Yeah. Time to mitigate is very important, because we have hands-on in this software. We understand it inside out, right? When life cycle happens, when we debug, when we fix it, it enables us to shorten our time before to identify the issue and fix it in weeks to days or to hours. And also in terms of time to market, because we have the software handy, we understand that we can develop very fast, instead of the dependencies on others to develop, that we can launch something fast that customized for our customers. That's the second one. TTM stands for 2 things. Yeah. The last but not least is COGS, that it enables us to cherry pick, right? Cherry pick hardwares, because it enables us to have the fungibility to shift hardwares, to cherry pick them, so that we don't need to heavily invest in the management to reinvent the wheel. So that make us to easily to cherry pick the hardware, and also this enable us to have the competition from the best of the hardware that can reduce the costs. And because infrastructure costs reduced, also it benefits our customer.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, if we have to spend more time and effort managing and maintaining these, or buying super expensive hardware, right, that maybe incrementally for any one user, at the end of the day, that does carry through to downstream customers.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's great. It actually, I've been in Azure networking for a really, really long time now, and I remember back in the day, we used to actually have to sort of care about the different OSs of the different ones. It's like, oh, is this a vendor number 1, or is this a vendor number 2? We gotta to fix this a little bit differently. Here's a slightly different command. That was nightmarish.
Right.
Yeah.
You feel the pain that all we need to remember all the nuances from different places, and even the tooling have to tune differently, like due to different OSs. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So we built this. I mean, this sounds like and we sort of hit on this earlier about open source is it goes both ways for Microsoft now, right? We both use it. It underpins a bunch of our services, and then we also contribute to it. But for something that is sort of this strategic, what's the rationale to turn around and say, here, Linux Foundation, like, take this thing, right? Like, why did we go that route?
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that the Linux Foundation adds and is that we as Microsoft make use of it for and seek its guidance on. And that is having neutral governance and having a place that is separate enough from Microsoft that partners feel comfortable engaging in open source broadly. Now, this one's a little bit different because the partnership was long-standing and strong among the networking industry partners, and we took it out to the cloud, or to the Linux Foundation, in order to try to draw in more people who may be using this on further edge cases. So potentially more clouds, of course, but also the vendors. But then also there are still spaces where there's a lot of on-prem hardware, and these vendors are selling switches with SONiC in it. So making it a space where their customers or our customers can also engage with it, where they have the skills. Like Evan, you're a part of networking. If you want to go take a peek at what's, causing that bug in your switch that you go change tomorrow because you got an on-call call last week, you can actually go make that contribution and debug it directly today in the open source project if you want to. If you want to go participate. We have quick start guides to come participate and play with it if you want to take a look. We have the Linux Foundation being a collaborative space that makes people who do not have a giant company behind them feel a little more comfortable contributing. And feel as if it's more of a fair playing field. And that's the big reason that we take projects out to something like the Linux Foundation or the Eclipse Foundation or the Open Compute Project. It depends, or the Apache Foundation. It depends on the project, where the community is, and where that natural center of gravity is to draw the business outcomes that we want. Because Microsoft still is, at the end of the day, a business. And when we make our open source choices, we make them with business decisions in mind. And this is something that we are not, like SONiC is something that is not special or specific to Microsoft. It won't differentiate our products particularly, but it will definitely decrease our cost of goods. And that's the reason that this needs to be a big collaborative effort across the industry, because then we can build interesting stuff on top of it.
So if I'm a customer, so I'm somebody, like you talked about on premises, so I have some third party, from the Microsoft perspective, some third party device that I bought from somewhere, and I've got this sitting in my data center. Can I put SONiC on it? Can I go play with it, like or do I need to spin up a virtual machine to this? Like how do I actually, great, I can see the code, but how do I actually put my hands on it?
Yeah, great question. Actually, it is actually Linux, right? The Linux Debian Linux, but with a lot of networking functionalities, containers. That you have many different ways that for hardware, that if you have hardware, switch hardware, you can run on top of it. But as a developer, sometimes we don't have this hardware, right? You can run actually on the VM. On the Linux VM, that's the way that you can get your hands on and get connected, or you can even run a containers.
That actually, this actually, we had the Mariner team on the podcast, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Does this run on Mariner? Does it run any Linux OS? Is there a connection there?
At this moment, it's running on Debian. Debian version. We're talking to Mariner's team.
Okay. So that's because there was a lot of that show actually it was sort of amazing, the amount of interest that came out of that, because Mariners are, from a Microsoft perspective, that's our first distro, right? So that was, again, similar to this. That's a big step change.
I want to jump in because it's not our first distro.
Is it not?
It is one of the early distros, but at the moment we have 6 different. I think I counted 6 different open source Linux distributions of particular flavors that Microsoft either manages for our own internal use. Sometimes it's just that. Sometimes publicly. Sometimes a combination of both, like Mariner, where we have it public and we're not using it so far as something that customers can do more than really play with at the moment. In time, that will change, I would expect. And at the moment, we know we have SONiC, we have Mariner, we have Flatcar, which came to us through an acquisition.
I wasn't thinking about, technically SONiC is its own distro.
Its own distribution.
Yeah, you're right.
So we've got those 3. We have a rebuild of Ubuntu that we work with Canonical on for our own uses. And then we also have Sphere has its own Linux distribution attached to it.
Yep.
And now I'm not going to be able to think of the 6, but I think at one point I thought of 6 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were laughing. We were laughing before the show. I put you on the spot. Now you put yourself on the spot there, right?
I totally put myself on the spot. Yeah, there is no concerning you. Yeah. I led the community meetings for Kubernetes for like more than 3 years, and those conversations run the gamut from me making all sorts of gaffes to whatever. So no, I have no concern about it.
Like we talked about, but before we started recording, and the audience, our regular audience knows, we have fun here, right? We're not formal. We're not, we're not. The aim is not to stress anybody out. So this is great. I mean, I love seeing where this is going. I've actually, I'm trying to remember if I can't remember when I first heard the SONiC name. I knew we were working on this, and I've been involved. I've actually debugged things relative to this over the years.
Thank you.
But sort of before we wrap up, what's the future look like at this point? I mean, well, like where, do you just see this just continue to get bigger and more expansive and more contributions, or where's this going?
Yeah, very good question. Actually, SONiC, we see that because we have hands-on, it's easy to customize it. We see a lot of innovations on top of it. So, for example, recently what we did is we invent a way to do a dual TOR that is a dual switch on top of a server to double the reliability, right? Even swing via a smart cable. Before, all the cables we are thinking of is a dummy cable, right? It's connected, just make connections. Now with SONiC, that will enable us innovation that to embed a chip into a cable to enable it to switch to select a route between the Y branches, so that enable us that one server, one VM to connect to the 2 different switches without very complicated protocols on switch to maintain the selection, but move the intelligence into the smart cable. But with SONiC, it's enable us to control it, to program it very easily. That is one way to innovate that the hardware. Recently, we have multiple new innovations going on in the community. Programmability. The DPU, IPU is the new trend, which enable us
DPU and IPU, can define those for the audience.
Yeah, DPU is called data process unit. IPU is infrastructure process unit. Okay. That is the latest ASIC. What does it do? Difference between CPU, right? It is we found out to run an infrastructure, there's a lot of housekeeping work, infrastructure related operation, networking related virtualization, security, encryption, so that we offload them to this super powerful, like high bandwidth, programmable chips that are designated to do these functionalities instead of CPU. So we save the CPU cores for the customer, for their applications, but offloading all these housekeeping operation infrastructure related item to that. We find out that we are launching a program Dash called the Disaggregate API for SONiC host, which enable us to control it, to use it to build infrastructure, so that the CPU will do the same for the customers. When the DPU, IPU, we use it to build smart switch to offloading all the millions flows, computation, encryption, storage IOPS to these DPUs, IPUs, so to build the network switch much more smarter and much more faster for the customer.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We were talking, Sarah. We're going to get you back at some point to talk about all the cool stuff we're doing at the Linux Foundation. Jing, since you said it, at some point I will get you to come back and talk about the dual TOR stuff, because that I am so excited about that. I have spent many years where we had a TOR reload and we ended up with a blip. If only I had 2 TORs, right?
Yes.
It's not a thing yet, but it's coming, right? This is actively something the entire industry is working on. Right.
And so for those of us who aren't networking nerds, you had multiple TORs, TOR?
Yeah, it's
What's
the
the
top of rack switch, right? You have your rack of blades.
Cool.
This is the one at the top.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a
I
really
just had never
common
heard it
failure
called
point.
Tor.
Yeah. I guess that must be us networking wonks. We talk about it that way. But yeah, good catch. Good catch.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's all good.
basically from the. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
I was going to say that I didn't expect that we were talking about the Tor, the onion router, and so I just wanted to disambiguate.
No.
Yeah, redundancy. It goes back to redundancy.
Yeah.
To provide more
Always.
redundancy or underpass.
We'll put that on a future episode because that one will be fun.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Last but
different
not
fun.
least, because we go to Linux Foundation, right? Many other like communities also see the benefit of SONiC enterprise community. We are mainly focused on data center, right? But in the community, the enterprise scenarios, the carrier scenarios, right? The IoT scenarios and edge scenarios. That's also one of the reasons that joining Linux Foundation, we see the bridge, we see the stage also with a lot of ecosystem, very rich ecosystem there. We can make the connection and dots.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, great. Well, no, Sarah, Ching, I really appreciate y'all coming on to talk about SONiC and the shift to the Linux Foundation. It sounds like there's, I may get both of you back on depending on the topic in the future. We'll, it's always fun to come to loop back around and see how things advance. But any last words or thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Shin?
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. Very happy to share the experience. It's a long journey, but we're excited about that because there's a lot of innovation we can do ahead of time, ahead of us that we do. I will send Ivan that our links of our web.
We'll definitely get some links and some headshots from y'all. Put you on the site.
And how to get it. If you are interested, how to download it. I'm actually looking forward to more conversations on that. Yeah.
Sounds great. Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
Thank you.